there's two types of ways to essentially get this diameter stick, twig, whatever we want to call it. Basically, one method is called coppicing, and that's when you have a willow, for example, or hazel, and you cut at the base or very close to the ground, and then from that it re-sprouts. But instead of having one, it's like Medusa, and it sprouts a bunch of different sort of runners. And then pollarding, on the other hand, they've both been used traditionally and in agriculture for a very long time. Pollarding is simply, take these crabapple trees, for example, if we just chopped it off at the top, kind of like you see actually the electrical companies do, if you've ever seen a tree, that's pollarding. So they've basically cut it off, and then from that it sprouts and regrows. And that can be used at any height above the ground, and traditionally has been used for fodder for animals. So in certain types of like silvopasture or mixed farming with animals and forestry, you would do a pollarding, and then that would grow vegetation and the animals could naturally reach it because you would cut it at a height for them. So those are kind of the two differences with those, but that's what coppicing is.
Yeah, and I know the terms, but I have not done that or had any real experience with it.
Yeah, and we've done it on accident at the orchard where all this material is from, because the trees have been cut continually to, we're not trying to grow willow intentionally, but it's been happening. I think maybe we should start doing it intentionally for basket making, but basically they've been coppicing it year after year to make room for the apple trees and the cherry trees and everything else in that area.
So it's a difference in height is the word. So the coppicing is low, and then the
pollarding. And there's like some other variations too, but those are sort of the main two.
Okay.
And I think they're probably both like British English, like older English terms, because they're primarily, I think a lot of this skill set does come from England.
Yeah, but it was used all over Europe. I mean, the Waddle and Daub style of building, it ended up being called Tudor style, which is after the Tudor dynasty, but it was used everywhere because the materials were easily available everywhere. England had famously, sorry, I'm going to go off on this a little, but it had very clayey soil, and so they're the ones who had to start drawing their plows with horses once they got to a certain point with the horse collar development, and they needed a different kind of plow. You know all this, I'm sure. But, but a different kind of plow, and what they did with their plowing was basically, because England was also wet, there was some version of what we would call, when you're on a hillside and you want to keep the water or let it go down, they would angle their plow according to what they needed to, according to the seasons. None of this stuff is new, but there's no straight line of descension on any of this. Sorry, so anyway, back to Waddle. They did use it as part of house construction, but they also used it to build fences where they would just put a thicker stick into the ground or a branch and then weave around it with something finer. And they also built something called hurdles, which is something that you just adapt the fence to something that is portable. So you can weave something that you can say, I need to pen in the baby goats, and I'm going to move these over here and make a temporary pen, or a toddler, for a playpen. Or you need shade for your plants for this time period because you're hardening them off, but then you can move it somewhere else and use it for another reason.
Is that where the history of hurdling comes from?
Yes, because you could jump over some of them. Or your lambs could eventually. Yes. All this stuff comes down. And they did things with the hurdles where they would make them and they would like go forward and then go backwards and leave a stick here, like so you could grasp them with your hands, lift them easily and move them. Very ergonomic. People didn't just discover ergonomics in the 1970s. It's been around for a while. Also with that, those two handholds there, you could bundle them together, tie them together, and put them on a wagon or the back of your horse and fasten it to the horses.
Or figure out on a bicycle trailer or something.
And transport things around wherever you needed to do that. So people were really smart about using natural materials for centuries. We wouldn't be here alive if people weren't smart about using natural materials. And all this stuff is renewable, and it looks really good in your garden.
Great. Well, I'm just going to interrupt for a moment while we continue to talk. We can also do some work at the same time. So I'll just demonstrate the general method here. We got a variety of different weavers. So this is cherry. We have quite a bit of cherry where this material was collected. That is rootstock that has just gone crazy. So it's pretty intentional also to be removing it, which is great. It's also really beautiful because it's red versus the willow is a little bit more of a green color. And then we also collected some alder, which is kind of a brown red. And then Anne also, we decided to collect some cottonwood because that is so invasive here and prevalent, to see how it would do over time and see about using that as a weaver instead of some of the other things. So basically what we'll be doing, I have a couple extra set of pruners here, but we want to get the wood down to where there aren't any, and this is also, I will say, a matter of preference. Some people might perhaps leave these on depending on the project. But basically you'll clip all of the larger branches off, and then it strips pretty easily just by hand for getting the leaves off. So then we're essentially, you can even cut off a small amount at the top because it's not very strong at the top. So we're left with one of these, which will be our weavers. So I will give you guys each a little bit to kind of be doing, and you can either collect it in the buckets or just leave it on the ground and we'll collect it at the end.
It won't go to waste.
It won't go to waste.
Do you ever, are cherry leaves medicinal? Like, can you dehydrate them and make them like chips?
I don't know. It's a good question. It's worth looking into. Yeah.
It's a great
I could
idea.
also look up the variety that this rootstock is. It could tell us a little bit more about how it can be used. But that's an excellent idea.
Yeah, I would think tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's tasty.
So something else I want to point you towards as a resource, we're obviously not going to show you this here, but if you get onto YouTube and Google the term wood bodger, Bodger, you will find people who do a lot of work with this kind of, this style of making things. And there's a lot to learn. These guys are usually really interesting. Most of them are English that I have seen. So they've got different kinds of techniques for the things they do. One of the things they talk about for making hurdles is you get a board, however long you want to make your hurdles, if you're going to be making more than one. You drill into them at a regular spacing for whatever your uprights are going to be. And then you can use that as your base, and they'll describe how to weave in and out and to fasten it off. And then when you're done, you just pop that one off, set it aside, go on and make the next one. So they've got all kinds of great techniques for that. The thickness of the branch, I've always used thinner ones, but mostly because that's what I could get my hands on. But yeah, there are all kinds of variations and varieties and ways to do all of this stuff, which is amazing. And it's all tied in. There's also ways of doing things with straw. It's a little different for thatching a roof, for example, which, by the way, the R value on that is phenomenal. Or building a bee skep. They would build bee skeps by winding around the straw. And all these different natural, and then weaving fabric is another thing. All these tasks, all these traditional skills are connected in one way or another.
What, say, a bee skep?
Bee skep.
What's
So
that?
if you've ever seen a drawing, it looks like a mound.
Oh, yeah.
And it's straw twisted together and wound up.
Oh.
I don't know how to do that, but it is a skill that can be
To
learned.
use for
And
what?
that's how they used to keep their bees, is in that. Now, mind you,
Oh.
the bad part about that is that when you wanted to get the honey out, you had to break their house open.
Oh.
So that was the hard part on that, and the modern way to do it is the way you should do it in the 20th
There actually is
century.
a modern version called a sun hive. So it's basically what you're talking about, but it's woven out of willow generally or something of the sort. But yeah, I guess it's a type of bee skep.
Yeah, probably.
How do they get around the having to cut it in half?
I don't remember what they said. I think that it might be openable,
Okay.
but it's much different than modern beekeeping because they let bees make their own wax in it.
Oh.
And when bees do make wax, they actually, this is, sorry, a little side note, but bees form a chain, literally a chain of bees, which a chain, if you hold anything that is chain-like or even a string, it's going to form a parabola, and that's how bees naturally make their wax. So when you see like real wax, it'll actually be in the shape of a parabola, and that's how the bee skeps or the sun hives were created.
Oh, the shape.
To allow for the natural shape.
This is good for my students. I need a little refresher.
Or like a half ellipse or something.
Half a what?
Ellipse or
Ellipse. Okay.
Like a moon.
like a U.
Yeah. And I bet I have a square with the U on it.
Another note is that generally, I guess this is also a matter of preference, but when I use these materials, I strip them right where I'm taking them from, so that kind of like the chop and drop agricultural method, so that the nutrients can go back into the soil. Unless they're like very large pieces, maybe I would take that to a compost pile. But it's also a way of making it easier to carry your weavers away from the spot. But we decided today to bring it here because we have a couple more hands to help with.
Where's your orchard?
It is on 81st off of Old Seward, right by Dino's Donuts.
Yeah, Dino's Donuts is at the end of the street. It used to be where Black Elk was, if you're an old timer like me.
Yeah.
And now it's the fastening store is where you turn. I missed it one time and ended up down by the Emerald Building.
Are there like visiting hours where people could go and kind of see the orchard?
I am more than happy to meet people. The only issue is it is gated with a lock, and that
So somebody has to be there.
somebody has to be there. I mean, I'm generally there multiple days a week, so I'd be happy for my email, or I can put my email in the comments for people to arrange a time, or just see if I'm going to be there a certain day or something.
I'm
Because it
kind
is
of.
a really incredible spot.
I was there just briefly that one day and was blown away.
It's beautiful. It's just wonderful.
How many varieties of apples do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's hundreds of varieties.
Wow.
And cherries and pears.
Yeah,
And
Asian pears. There's some stone fruit, berries.
it's like what it teaches what can be grown up here.
It does, and we also have a greenhouse, which of course there's apple varieties that don't usually live in Alaska or inside that greenhouse. But even outside of it, the person who started it, he also sort of challenged the numbers that were put on apple varieties, and so it's sort of an experimental place, which is kind of great, and there's pretty good documentation on what has worked, when things fruit, that sort of thing, which is all currently run by volunteers.
What's its name?
It's called Boyer's Orchard,
Okay.
after Bob Boyer, who started it, and it was sort of his hobby project for many, many years until he passed away.
Well, and I think it's worth noting, especially within the permaculture community, and I'm sure with just any expert gardeners, or gardeners who just have a passion for it, is you just push the boundaries of what is possible. And we had a summer last summer that was just amazingly hot and dry, and people were growing cucumbers outside and successfully growing watermelons and corn and things that just 10 years ago wouldn't have been thought possible except in a greenhouse. And so it's really a great idea to experiment in your own space. You can create microclimates which can bump up the temperatures a little bit more. And then the beautiful thing about the Anchor Garden community is, you know, we're sharing what our successes and our I won't even call them failures because they're priceless in what you learn from it. And our experiments, you know, the results of our experiments, sharing that so that we can grow as a community just that much quicker.
I think one of the things that's going to come out of climate change is the ability to grow different things here, but it's going to be start, stop, intermittent, constant experiment. I try to experiment with something new every single year.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't keep the best records, but I do want to share a book that I read last fall. I never thought I would use this phrase, but it was a totally mind-blowing gardening book. And it's called The Resilient Gardener by Carol Deppe, D-E-P-P-E.
D-E-P-P-E.
Again, I will email you the citation on that. It was, she relies on 5 different things. She uses corn, which doesn't grow well up here, and I'm allergic to it anyway, so I didn't care about that. Beans, and she talked about the varieties. She's a plant breeder, PhD, does all this stuff. Squash, so this is my first year trying winter squash.
She's doing the Three Sister or the polyculture.
She doesn't do it that way, and she does double dug stuff. They get a rototiller in to do that, so she's not quite on that part of it yet, but the stuff she does with her seeds and plants and breeding is phenomenal. So ducks is the other one, and potatoes. And so I'm doing potatoes again this year, which I haven't done in several years.
Did you say ducks?
Ducks.
Ducks, okay. Just want to make sure
Yep.
I heard
Yeah,
an animal, not a vegetable.
Yeah, animal, not a vegetable, but 5 things. And yeah, I'm thinking
Oh,
rabbits
it might be
myself.
tied together.
What are these ones?
These are willow. So I brought some willow just so we could start stripping some of the willow, because it's kind of just nice to alternate the colors. And the willow is actually a little bit easier to strip.
There is actually a dance called Strip the Willow. So you know people were doing this for a long time.
Did you trim these this morning, or how long have you?
Yes. You can. Willow is it's a really great material to weave with because it's one of the only materials that you can harvest in advance and simply re-wet when you're wanting to weave.
And willow will, like, you could plant that and it'll grow.
Yeah, and
You
that's
can have
another thing to note is that willow grows like crazy. So if we chose to use our uprights with willow, the structure would come alive within a couple of years, likely.
create your own living fence.
And you can definitely do that if that's what you're wanting to, but it's also a caveat if you would not like your fence to.
Well, and willow is moose food. So if you do make a living willow fence, you are potentially attracting moose
Right.
to an area that you might want to be keeping them out of. Now, I would think cherry leaves are moose food.
Probably.
Probably,
I'm sure
yeah.
it's very tasty.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit sweet.
People hog and knob, what's it called up here? Do they still, can you do that up in Alaska? Or is it, what's the siding called?
Waddle and daub.
Waddle and daub. Hob and knob.
No.
Waddle and daub, there it is.
Calvin and
people
Hobbes.
do still build with it. It worked very well in England, which is a wet climate, so your clay would not dry out and turn to dust. But keep in mind that it's not that different from adobe, which they've used in the Southwest.
Right.
I mean, there are variations of the same things in, all over the place. I mean, the sod houses in the north here is I mean, that's what they have. It's not the same, but it's a variation. So it's just amazing what people figure out, how well they make it work.
So it's just food for thought, you know, when you buy a $300,000 house or more versus building with this, which I know years ago we were really into clay fiber building, doing lots of workshops with pioneers in Alaska, and there was, you know, planning and zoning concerns within the city, but outside of the municipality, you have a lot more freedom to experiment, and there are wonderful examples of clay fiber homes throughout Alaska.
Really?
Yeah. And Cindy Carnes, who lives in the bioshelter, she teaches lots of permaculture courses currently, and she designed a greenhouse that she added on to her garage and designed a sauna off of the greenhouse, and it's on a crazy angle of a slope because that's what she was working with.
Yeah.
And it's all clay fiber, and she designed it. She put it together with lots of workshops, lots of, like, Anne was one of them. I helped in the early stages. But it's beautiful.
It is. I was helping to figure out with our cement mixer the mix for the daub that we were using, and it was like 1/3 straw, 1/3 sand, 1/3 clay. She has a secret source for clay. I have a source for near clay near here. I'll go to that in a second.
Well, Anchorage is built on a bed of clay. Downtown Anchorage.
Yeah.
Which is why it rolls.
Yeah, so it was 1/3 of each of those, and we mixed it up in the cement mixture, and then we plastered it into the wall structure that was there. So the location, I wrote it down. I have never gone and gotten it, but my husband has gone there. So you go down to the coastal trail near the Lynn Airy Park. Bring a bucket and bring a hand truck. This is heavy stuff. Bring a friend. More than one if you need more than one bucket, but get a little bit to start with. So you have to kind of go across, I think it's private property, but not too much, down to the inlet, dig the stuff out. So again, like I said, we do the Renaissance Fair, and one of the people there builds an oven every year. So she has bricks that she puts together, and she mixes straw with the clay to chink the bricks and seal them together, and then at the end of the year she takes it all apart, and the stuff just goes into the ground and biodegrades. But that's where she gets it. So
I've done I've built 2 earth ovens with sand, clay from Healy, and straw fiber, and these are earth ovens, you know, the dome shape that you, like pizza ovens.
yeah, that's exactly what she does.
Do they get up to
Oh yeah.
really high temps?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very high. So like your earth oven would cook a pizza in just
Like 5 minutes
or less.
Or less.
Yeah, yeah.
She bakes bread, so it takes more than 5 minutes, but it works.
Probably less than a.
Well, you can control the temp too, you know, with how long you've built the fire and how big it is, and different areas of the oven could be at slightly different temps.
So all of these different skills, I just think it's just wonderful to.
Kind of invaluable. It just opens up.
Yeah. And you appreciate when you go in to use your Instant Pot or your pressure cooker. I mean, you appreciate the fact that you have it, but it's good to know that there's other ways to do it, and sometimes that's the more fun thing.
Well, and like with this garden, with so many things, you can design with intention. What is it that you want? Do you want functionality? Do you want it to be a gate? But you can also design beauty.
Yes.
You can design, this is edible. You can make it a living. It could be a moose habitat. It could be design with intention and stacked functions, which is a very permaculture principle. And I personally love designing with beauty and thinking about, like, you know, creating habitat for insects or birds or, you know, wildlife. You know, if you can draw wildlife kind of where you want them in your yard or homestead and not where you want them, then you're kind of working with nature. Can we do like a time check for Liz? Because I know she's got a deadline of when she... 12:15? Okay.
12:15. I think I'm gonna go and get the material that we'll use to weave around, but you guys can continue for just a moment and then we'll get started on the project.
And I'm imagining that there's the possibility that after your sword class, you could come back and the materials will be here and you can continue the project if no one else is here. If you want to get more hands-on skills and see kind of the progress that was made while you were gone. And chances are we might still be here too. It's, you know, hard to say, but just thought I'd throw that out to you because I think like the materials are going to be here while we're in the process of building this fence.
Right. Well, excellent. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. So you won't miss out.
So one thing I do want to point out, one of the sources I looked at, and it's certainly been my own experience, you're going to need so much more of this stuff than you think you will need. And you've noticed that too. Yeah, it's one source I said get 5 times more than you think you need, and that's a good starting point.
Definitely.
Thank you.
We might not have enough for the project that we're working on, but it's also, we're just gonna get started on it today anyway. So as far as the uprights go that we weave around, no, you're good. You want it to generally be a material that won't break down super quickly. So we have quite a bit of alder and birch at the property, which are generally a little bit longer lasting from my understanding, so that's what we've chosen today. Our plan is to do a fence or a wattle fence that is about 10 inches high. So we'll want our uprights to be at least a foot, say, and then account for how much is going to go in the ground. I don't know how far we're going to get in the ground, so the first one I'm going to cut probably a little bit extra long, just to see. It's not the end of the world if you cut it short, because you can add in another one at the top if you need to.
You might want to...
and I'll demonstrate how to do that actually maybe on the potato tower.
I was just going to suggest that maybe we want to do a slight point at the bottom.
Yeah,
okay.
That's definitely going to happen. So I'm going to cut it at a pretty sharp angle, and then the next one I'll cut this flat, so then the angle will be shared by the two in the middle, if that makes sense. And this is all just stuff you figure out after doing it once. Trial and error. Very nice to have a quite sharp saw for this, otherwise it can be a frustrating task. I'm gonna go, if you guys want to come over, you're welcome to. I'm gonna just start putting in these uprights where we're gonna do our fence, which is just gonna be along this little perennial area that is beside the greenhouse. We can bring weavers to strip that way if we want to.
Getting a shot of your gorgeous potato tower.
Need to add some more height to it pretty soon too.
Is that the pointy end there?
Yep.
Okay.
If you're worried about stability, you can also put rocks at the base and hammer them in. I don't think it should matter for this structure because it's not supporting anything, but that is an option. And then the other thing of note when spacing your uprights is that you want your weavers to go around at least 3 of the poles, essentially. So this is a pretty short one, and it would start here. So we want our third space to at least be around here, our third upright. I'm probably gonna do them fairly close, probably like about this. Just feels right. Which is actually similar to what you see on the tower.
Some areas we have like pretty thick cardboard, so there may be a little bit more that you got to pound
Resistance.
through. Yeah.
That's probably.
And we have lots of rocks if we do need it.
So you can see that it's still moving, which is okay. It doesn't need, it's better if it's like absolutely solid, but it really depends on your ground. These were not like super duper solid, and they're still doing okay. So if somebody would feels comfortable using the saw, we could cut some more links that are similar. And we'll probably, in the interest of time, I think we'll stop it at some point, probably midway here, so we can actually do some weaving before people need to go. But here's this, and the uprights are right here.
You know what you can also do, what I've done is you could use a bucket to put the stick on top of and hold it, and then have it hang off the side. give you more stability, so it's not moving like that.
You could try the same side
And you have it hanging off the side.
side.
Yeah. Put the handle down. Here, yeah, and then we like there, and then I can help hold the one end so that it just gives you more resistance. So, there we go.
Needed to be more on an angle, I guess.
There we go.
Yeah, we might want a little bit more of an angle,
Okay.
but we could. I should have brought a large. Do we have a large set of pruners here?
I can check in my car.
I think this one.
But, you know, that was your first.
Yeah.
And each time you do it, you learn. You learn, okay.
Yeah, and pruners do work really well too for just making a point at the end.
Perfect.
Are willows native to here?
Yep. And another thing about willows that when you see a lot of willows growing, you know there's a lot of water. Same with cottonwood. So it's like if water is what you're looking for, you look to see what's growing there and you can tell. Because there could be like an underground spring or something that, you know, when you're buying land or raw land or something.
And very easily.
Woo! Is there a specific thickness that you're?
That we're going for.
Yeah.
This is probably the thinnest we'll go.
Okay.
It's still pretty strong because this is like very strong wood. But yeah, anywhere kind of in between here and here is what we would be shooting for.
It's gonna be
That's
so
enough of a
pretty.
point, or does it need to
Yeah,
be?
I think that looks great. And I'm a little bit maybe too much of a perfectionist, but I like to measure. I mean, it's not an exact measurement, but
Sure.
just so things stay relatively the same.
Very pleasing to the eye. Unless you want like an abstract art piece or something.
Sure. Right.
Have you ever done it in sections like this without doing the whole thing?
I have it, but it can't be any different than doing anything else and adding it in as you go.
Right.
Yeah. And you always run out if you're doing a large.
Do you want some help,
everything
Liz,
I've
holding
done
it?
has been really small.
I think I got it. I think there's
Okay.
enough weight on this end to keep it sturdy.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Great.
If it's moving around a lot, that's, yeah.
So we want one side to be flat if possible. Okay. We just want to flatten out one of them.
We can scoot you in another direction so she can come around. Thicker it is, the more.
Harder it is, right?
And just another note is is where you are sawing is kind of right at a knot, and that's probably a more tougher place to cut, you know, where there's a branch. So just for future, like pick in between.
The knots. Okay.
Yeah, just little less work.
You think this is too big to be a post or a link?
Is this too right length?
It might be too short.
This one might be short.
Oh, okay.
But no, let's do it. Let's do a thick one.
Yeah, that thick one would be, I think, okay.
Okay, I'm just gonna cut it at an angle at the top here.
Perfect. Angle on one end, flat on the other. Good job. There's another one. Oops. I'm just going to walk around and see what everyone's up to.
I started out wearing gloves. Oh well. But this stuff is so easy to strip out. It's really nice. The willow is the easiest.
So that's willow. and
No,
then-
this is actually cottonwood or alder?
Cottonwood, I think.
Cottonwood. It's all sticky.
Oh, okay.
But the birch, or sorry, the willow is the easiest.
So so you guys brought 3 types today?
I just from
Cottonwood.
habit grabbed anything that was like approximately the right size.
That's great.
But we ended up, I know I cut cherry, cottonwood, willow, alder.
Great.
So all of that will be in there.
And I know that there was somebody had asked earlier in the week about the Mayday trees, the invasive Mayday trees. Like, I would think that anything that is of this, you know, width and long enough could be a twine.
Yeah, it's important. It could be good to look up sort of the longevity of the material.
Okay.
I'm not sure about Mayday
Well,
or
and
even
Mayday is
cottonwood.
so invasive that you might just be like planting a forest of Mayday where, you know, your fence may become a bunch of Mayday trees.
Right.
Well, if you're there managing, you
True.
can control that.
Yeah.
I've seen things put out leaves, certainly. I haven't seen it take root, but I've seen it put out leaves. All the stuff I've done has been temporary.
Woo! Dun da da!
Want to take a go at putting the post in?
Oh, sure.
Sometimes you have to further cut it
Okay.
at the end so that it's more of
Jagged.
yeah, like a
Stabbable.
very, because this, like Teresa was saying, the fact that we have so much cardboard, so it's sometimes hard to pierce that layer.
And the reason the cardboard, we did lasagna gardening here, and we did a lot of like spent grain and produce on
Yeah,
top
and
of the
I was
grass,
just measuring using one of them
Okay.
like that.
and a
Cool.
thick
Nothing too fancy.
layer of cardboard, 3 or more, so it can provide quite a barrier. Beautiful. Liz, whenever you're ready to switch to, you just say the word.
Do you guys have any good weaving songs?
Some work
Ooh.
songs, I wish.
Well, I bet you those traditional medieval times they had all sorts of cool weaving songs.
They
eh?
did. There was a task called wool walking, not W-A-L-K, but W-A-U-L-K. And they had songs for that. And some modern songs with the right rhythm can be adapted for that. And they actually do a demo of that we do a demo of that at Three Barons.
You know the song? A
I
song?
don't. I am not a singer. And I've always got too much to do in the house to giving tours there to participate in that. But yeah, they do demos and people can participate in that. And that's what it's for. It's like you do this rhythm and then you flip it and then you do this rhythm and then you flip it. And that's what those songs are for.
Gosh, I mean, you think about that. Mixing song with work has been done on every continent.
Yes.
You know?
Whether the work was willing or unwilling.
Yeah.
Think of where the blues come from.
Yeah.
Unwilling work. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I'm actually going to go ahead and get going. Hopefully I see you ladies later.
Okay. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Yeah, thank you. It's been
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Liz. Oh yeah.
Something funny.
Is there a way to pause a video while you're recording it?
That is a good question.
Like that will stop it.
Yeah, I think you could just splice them together after. That might require some additional technology.
Yeah.
Tech that, but I don't know. Okay, who's good at making a stabber? There's a lot of cardboard right here.
It's hard to do it with these small. I should have brought the larger pruners.
Man, this garden's really looking good.
There's something about like after a rainstorm, just particularly
Yeah.
incredible. So those willow leaves, you know, you can make a tea out of. That's like your, that's where your aspirin comes from, willow bark, acetaminophen.
Slightly stoppier.
Yeah. Just try, I mean, that could be a mulch. The willow could continue to grow though if you use it as a mulch. What else, what other uses? You can compost it.
Yeah.
It's your green.
Make little mini baskets in the middle or
Absolutely. You could smoke. You could smoke. Can't you smoke it? Smoke fish. Cherry, like those cherry branches. Cherry smoked fish.
It's like it's hitting a rock. Wow, I think there's like 10 layers of cardboard right there.
Yep.
Do you have a preference on where this goes, or is just on the end being good?
You know what we could do is take a garbage can and we'll just make it until we figure out like the best use of it. But it'll probably get composted. If there's water in any of the garbage cans, let's put it in a.
There's not much in here.
Okay.
Do you mind?
Oh, let's pour the stones out because we could use the stones to pound into the stakes if we need them.
Okay.
Those little ones.
This one is really
Yep.
Really big.
A thinner one. Surgery.
I feel the earth.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing it.
Woo!
Yahoo!
Lord, there's like 10 layers of cardboard here.
Mary Ellen has lost 5 pounds in front of us.
Alright. Well, I think we could go ahead and start just so you can get a feel for it, Sarah. And then it can be continued upon whenever people have time.
So you were saying that willow is one of the ones that you can get wet again and it will still have those same bendy properties?
Yeah.
What about the other ones?
I've never. I know that they will last a while in a damp spot, but I'm not sure if they re-wet so easily. But it's
Okay.
worth trying.
So you trimmed these in today? Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay, so right into
we did, but I also trimmed some for that basket like a week before and it still worked. So it does have a little bit of leeway. But we can get started. I don't know if Anne has a particular way of doing this, but I know how I did it might be slightly unusual as far as Waddle goes. The basic premise is that you always go out, you know, you're weaving around, and the next one will come over and it'll do the opposite. But in addition to that, I like to twine them together so it gives it a little bit more structure. So, for example, this one's on top here, which means that we want this one on top next.
Oh, I see.
Almost like a braid in a way.
Yeah.
In fact, one thing I ran into said if you've got really skinny ones, you can braid them together. Yeah.
And so it's a little bit tricky at the start because this doesn't have anything to pull on. So we're gonna do a slight cheat just to get started. So that one's on top, so this next round, this one's gonna be on top. But you can already see that we need to add another weaver here because this one is ending. So we're gonna go ahead and add an additional one. And I generally choose to add it so that it'll go on the inside. So I'm adding it just where this one was. then, oh, sorry.
It's okay.
So that's just literally being doubled essentially. And then the next one, we're gonna have to add one right here as well. It's ideal to have them of different lengths because then you're not ending at the same place, which will just kind of eventually happen. So this one was here, we're gonna stick our weaver in with it and then try to braid them together. And this right now is gonna stick out, but once we have a little bit more structure, it can probably be tucked into the structure without being cut. We'll see that at a later point. So that one here. And then this one's gonna go.
So cool how quick it comes.
Yeah. So then that one's gonna end, and we're just gonna make sure we have another weaver. It's gonna go over like that. Yeah. So if you want to try, I know that was not the biggest introduction.
No, it's
But,
good. So would you want to do the whole base first before you started the second and third?
You mean like the continual whole
Yeah.
piece?
Or would you
Generally,
build it
but
up?
today we're just gonna do it just this section and build this section up, and
Okay.
we'll kind of, it'll be an experiment to see how to continue with it looking continuous
Okay.
in the future.
I think it's going to be pretty much the same because you're already having, even with just this shorter section, you're still having to add more in. Everything I have done has been really, really short, so I've never had that issue. And then people bend it back around. And one of the things I heard is that with willow, if you go like this and kind of roll it back and forth, it becomes more fibrous and then
Can you show
bends
that again?
easily. You're kind of going like this, like you're wringing out a wet sock. And then it breaks down the fibers, but then they can bend around a corner better. I don't know if that's true with some of the other woods or not.
Yeah, I know. I watched a video on the hurtling, and that's what they do
Yeah,
for the hurtling.
for hurdles they certainly do that because it's shorter and it comes to an end at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to start all over.
And why are you bending it back like that?
Just because we're ending it here.
Oh, okay.
So we can cut it off too if we prefer, but just to give it a little bit more structure so it's not just stopping there. A lot of it I feel like there's not really many rules other than, yeah, it's very intuitive, so it's sort of like whatever feels right or makes sense.
Well, and also you could do a much looser weave and see through it, you know, versus a tighter weave like your potato tower, which is holding
Right.
material. So it's really designer's choice.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's also, each stick is different too. So if you've got a stick that bends this way, use it in a way that the bend is part of what you need,
Sure.
as opposed to trying to fight that.
Yeah.
So that's
hard
the thing
angle
with
to start
natural materials all the time.
I know, to try to keep
And I think that's the thing with art too.
Yes. You use what you've got and you
What do
make
you
it
think,
work
Mary Ellen?
the way it wants to be used to some extent. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if we just need another post to help it out in the beginning.
Another
So it
post
can-
like
So it can kind of be wedged in between the two. Never done something with such a sharp angle that wasn't circular.
uh-huh.
So it could be, you could try to figure that out. That looks pretty good. Could be twisted around.
We just have to remember that that door goes open
There
and
you go.
closed. So it yeah.
Not anymore.
But that's a good problem to have, so we could devise a solution, you know,
Yeah.
figure it out.
It's kind of working.
Yeah.
So,
Just a couple extra twists there.
yeah. And I alternative here is to start with like a pretty flexible, I don't know how flexible this is going to be, but
Oh, I see. You're
pre-bending.
yeah.
And the way that they wring it out, it's a little bit easier to do when it's stuck to something. But he kind of like twist if this was being held in place until it turns into rope, essentially. It's
Yeah,
like very interesting.
That's right. That's exactly what they were saying.
So we could potentially start like this.
Yeah.
Collective aha.
It's still sort of tricky.
Here, I'll hold this. You wrestle with that.
So it might break, but even that is okay. Like it's broken, but it's not torn apart here.
Right. It should still hold.
Metaphor for life.
And I think when you start to add on, you could do the same thing where you start with either the middle or with the skinny end and weave it around.
And it just builds its own unique character, which adds to the beauty.
There's a rhythm to it, but each one is unique at the same time, and it just works really nicely that way. And maybe just taking the shorter, skinnier ones and kind of seeing if those would wrap around
Better.
and then
I think what we might
lash
need
it
to
in
do
a little.
is we could either add posts on either side. It's mostly these two that are kind of an issue. So we could go ahead and try to add 2 more uprights to weave around. So basically one here and here, and see if that helps give us a little bit more structure too. I just do that really quickly. Some of these little ones.
Are we saying that that's going to be there permanently?
Possibly.
Okay.
Kind of an experiment with,
Sure.
I think mostly these structures were probably made for straight lines, which
Yeah.
much of our garden is not straight lines. So it's just figuring out how it can be adapted
Sure.
to this situation.
Well, and even if this is one technique, and if we create new techniques, we can show the evolution as we learn.
Sarah, I didn't mean to take your job. You can continue there if you want with the new sticks.
Okay.
It's nice to do this with a group because then you can have people doing all stages, getting enough material ready.
And honestly, none of this is hard, but there is a trick to it, and practice is going to make a difference in every step of it. But the basic idea is really straightforward.
Boy, that's really come around that bend really beautifully.
Right here.
Yeah.
Once it's started, it goes around turns easily, so that could be something of note. Starting on a curve is a little bit harder, than weaving around a curve.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it seems like this method could potentially work for our system here, because it's providing sort of more options from the beginning to be held against. So that's good. Just to note, if you want to try it.
Not on camera, Teresa.
You're doing so great though.
You are doing so great. You're teaching, like any struggles that any of us
I
have,
know you're making me show them what a beginner looks like.
and how
We're
we.
all beginners.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and how we solve them. That's what everyone who's watching this is going to be experiencing. So it's valuable. Yeah. How do you weave in a new stick?
So this one I just added right here. We want it here first. And then I think this one can get this one added in. Yeah, so Sarah actually has her own method, which is really great, of pre-creating the twining, pre-twisting,
Ah,
which
good
is working really well.
job. You natural.
Yeah, and you don't have to ever start at the beginning. Like you can start
Oh.
at this side, or you can go the opposite way so that the thicknesses are always differing.
And I wasn't sure that I was going to like the colors of the wood together, but oh my gosh, it's gorgeous.
And it does kind of turn into a darker shade over time.
Yeah. Well, at least on camera, the green and the
They
red
look really nice
look
together.
really pretty.
So big.
So when you need it to bend, yeah, you're twisting it in.
I want that to be.
Mary Ellen, what would you suggest? Well, she's got this frisky willow.
You know, I'm almost wondering, have you ever done like with baskets, like this method where you would go in the bottom like this, and so that could support, and then you weave around it. Do you know what I'm
So you're
talking?
adding another, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like the stick, but it's you don't have to use a thicker stick,
Yeah,
and then you could weave like that
sure. It's worth a shot to see
just to get it tight.
how it affects the structure too.
You just have to
And then,
bend
so
it.
this one is poking out the front here, which it'll give a little bit more structure if it's always on the inside, basically. So we can force it to go in there. It'll be a little bit more stable. There we go. It also hides it. so you don't have to do as much cutting afterwards.
Woo!
Nice. That one I stripped just to show that you can strip it
Oh,
and do different colors in that way. The willow strips really easily. I don't know about some of the other woods.
Birch is really a pain. You have to clip it almost
Yeah.
all the way. Yeah.
I like the other colors. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I like the way it works together that way. Yeah, the layering of the colors. And they'll age to different colors too.
And do you want to do some?
Well, it's kind of nice because everyone's got their own sort of style, which is nice to show too. And what I've noticed is that you can start at some place and start winding it, and then if you got an end that's poking out, you can just kind of scooch it, the whole stick, you know, down an inch or two or whatever you need.
And just continually weave this in or that in with the next one.
So, Mary Ellen, what would be your advice for this corner where you know, the inside branches want to like?
Yeah, I think this is going to have to go on the outside.
I think that's perhaps how the twining helps because you're like wrapping it around another branch. So it's almost as if there were another upright in this position because you're twining it. It's crisscrossing at that spot.
Okay.
So then it's wrapping around the branch.
Sure.
But it could also, I mean, an alternative would be to put more uprights in this situation.
Yeah.
So there's kind of different ways of doing it.
And like I mentioned, all the stuff I've done has been really short, so I've got them closer together.
Right.
And I'm using thinner sticks because everything is so short.
Right.
And so it's just always going in, out, and then back around.
Right.
And yeah, that's how it always ends up working.
Do you typically start with the bigger guys on the bottom? Or does it really matter?
Doesn't matter.
Or does it
I
kind of
think I
depend
kind
on
of
the
vary it.
consistency you want?
We could weave some the opposite direction, yeah, like
Yeah.
that, to give it a little bit more variance.
This one I'm trying to just go around the corner itself.
This little corner with your potato tower, this little section of the garden is so pretty, so rustic.
Nice.
And I like that with the, I actually like a low fence in that if you were going to utilize and plant flowers, you would see them. You were saying you wanted like a 10-inch high.
That was sort of at least a little bit higher than this, perhaps. But this is looking good already.
It really is. And then we could like trim some of the higher posts.
The post will definitely, that's kind of the last step is trimming the post.
Okay.
Once you're happy with the height and how it looks, you can just trim them all off to be
Great.
equal. If you want it to be equal height, or it could be
Sure.
varying depending on what it needs for.
Well, and I like the idea that we could do, I mean, we can get a whole bunch more strawberries and fill it all in with strawberries, and so we don't. My personal preference is not to go 10 inches high.
Yeah.
Keep it like 6 or.
Yeah, I mean a 6
Well, maybe-
or 7 could be really nice, and then it could be filled a little bit more with dirt.
What height is it at now? Maybe I'm thinking 10 inches is more like 18.
This is about 5 inches.
That's
I
5.
would
Okay.
say.
Oh yeah.
Um,
So yeah, like 7 or 8
yeah,
would be beauty.
would probably be really nice because this is looking really.
It's really
starting
looking
to like
sweet.
it.
Yeah. And we can grab the Lutheran. If you've not been to the permaculture food forest on
No.
the C Street, oh my gosh.
Oh, I want to go to that.
Well, why don't we go and I'll walk you through it. It's a
That could be
showstopper.
really nice.
And we could harvest a bunch of strawberries and bring them over here because there's like 100,000 of
plants.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's looking really good, and as you can see that Sarah is sort of filling in with some smaller diameter where there's a little bit of space. So it's kind of just as you go, seeing how it progresses and being flexible and just rolling with it. That's the part that I think is really fun about it, is it's like just an artistic expression in a different way.
And
It's never like perfect or
it's actually
very
really
organic and
yeah, and it makes you appreciate the organic because it's like you step away from it and you see the beauty that's coming out, in its imperfections or its. What's the opposite of uniform? In its difference. Ooh, that is pretty. Maybe if you guys are open to it, we'll do another workshop where we continue this.
Yeah.
Because more people might.
be able to make it.
I
Yeah.
can try to do a better job of spreading the word too. But it's kind of nice. I feel like I'm getting a really special learning right now.
Look, I don't feel like I know. I mean, I can talk about it, but in terms of hands-on, I don't have huge experience, so I'm learning as much as anyone.
And the good thing about that is we can always cut back a little bit. It
True,
won't be
yeah.
permanently closing the door.
It's so gorgeous.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, yeah, you just fall in love with it. Just fall in love with nature.
It's better than a keyboard.
Here, here. Ding, 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 ling, ling.
I just got the teacher plan. Did a little spinning out there that ASD is proposing.
Really?
I should turn the video off, maybe.
I'm gonna cry. Yeah, it was kind of nice to put the little babies in. Have you ever woven backpacks?
I've never done it.
What was the question?
A backpack. I've known people that have done very beautiful designs.
Yeah, I have a friend that is a backpack weaver, and I have one of hers. I'll bring it in. She buys her materials though, but I'd really like to learn how to do natural.
It's like, there's grasses that you could harvest at the right time to make baskets.
Right.
There's, the materials for this. There's the materials for, like you said, a backpack. Like, we should find our own experts
Right.
and keep doing workshops on this because I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Ooh, what are you doing?
I'm not sure. I'm just trying something. I'm trying to braid it and then wind it up at each end.
Oh, you're like inspired.
Yeah, I'm working on a project for a friend of mine, and I want to use some of those birch leaves that we cut off. I want to dip them in something like a white glue water mixture or something to make little roof shingles for this little project. So,
Ooh.
but anyway, I'm not sure if this is going to work or not.
Well, it has its own beauty.
It's not really a braid, but it's a little bit that direction. Anyway, I was thinking that maybe if we braided a few skinny ones together and then needed to pin in some of those,
Oh, yeah.
you could work on it so it might pin it in.
And is that the willow that bends like
This must be the willow because the birch is snapping much easier. Stuff to learn, stuff for us to all learn. And I think this is definitely the willow.
that? So you're breaking down the fibers.
Yeah, because it's bending and twisting. They use the willow for so many different things. They're so fun.
Ooh, what's that?
This is some of the willow bark, and I know that people do weave with this.
Right.
So you can flatten it out, and then if you get a lot of it, make different structures,
Oh my
smaller baskets with it.
God. And it's got to be strong, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty strong, and I think it dries pretty solidly.
And if you're weaving it, you're just making it that much stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's also the source of my pain reliever of choice.
Yeah. The bark.
Aspirin, well, I take commercial aspirin, so I know the dosage amount, but I know that willow bark is the source, the original source for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be
You
interesting.
could
I'm
chew on it.
not
what
sure
works for
so
me.
much about how to use it medicinally, but it definitely is worth looking into.
A friend of mine does it. She gets it's the innermost bark and she pounds it.
Like
and
the
I helped her.
cambium, basically, like this.
Yeah, I believe so. And she pounds it, and she had me do a little taste test on it. I know what aspirin tastes like,
And
so
it
when she
tastes
gets
good.
there, I can taste it. It's just like the commercial aspirin. The only question I have with natural remedies, I don't doubt that they work, and they often work super well because aspirin, like I said, my pain reliever of choice. But the question is sometimes the dosage
Right.
and making sure you get the correct dosage on the correct item.
It's kind of hard to get the inner bark, but it's very strong. Well, I think we could sort of end here, at least as far as the video portion goes.
Sounds good.
Yeah, this is basically it, and you can just continue on. You can stop the project and continue a different day. Right now we only did a section, so hopefully we will continue in the future with some more sections down the
Yeah.
line.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mary Ellen.
Thanks, Mary Ellen.
Thank you, Ann.
Have
Appreciate
fun
your
with this
time.
stuff. Take it a different direction. I
Yeah.
would just really encourage experimentation.
Yeah, for sure.
It really is just the border around this bed is like really making this bed pop and beautify it. Okay.